Hello and welcome to this Oak Tree English video on how to get SPaG right for GCSE English. SPaG? SPaG? This joker's just making up words, I hear you cry. But no, SPaG stands for vocabulary, spelling, punctuation and grammar. And these are things that people often get wrong at GCSE and actually throughout the range of English learning. So we're going to try and get it right. It's measured against the marking scheme AO6. A-O. Let's go. Hang on, I shouldn't do that, should I? I'll get done for copyright or something. Okay. And this says, use a range of vocabulary and sentence structures for clarity, purpose and effect with accurate spelling and punctuation. And there's pretty much nothing anywhere in the universe that tells us what that means. We need something to break that down. So that's what this video is going to try and do. We're going to try and break that down. So the best thing I found was from a website of a school called Chessington School. If anybody sees this from Chessington School, I salute you and thank you for the material. And they broke this down a little bit. They said, use an extensive and ambitious use of vocabulary. Extensive and ambitious, we'll talk about that a bit more. High level of accuracy in spelling, including ambitious vocabulary. Wide range of punctuation is used with high level of accuracy. Punctuation. Sentence demarcation is consistently secure and consistently accurate. Uses a full range of appropriate sentence forms for effect. Uses standard English consistently and appropriately with secure control of complex grammatical structures. And it is around this that I have structured this video. So once again, Chessington School, I salute you. And here is my attempt to broaden out what you've said. So let's talk about vocabulary. The English language has the largest vocabulary in the world, bar none. We have something like 3 times as many words, I think, as the Spanish language. The reason for this is because we got invaded and then we went and invaded someone else and someone else came and invaded us and then we went and invaded another country and then we went and spread the empire out all around the world. So we get words like pajama and bungalow from India. Thank you, India. We get words like attack from the Vikings. We get words from the Normans, who are sort of French Vikings. We got the words from French, which bled into Norman. We've got words from the Greeks, because Greek was the lingua franca. That's the main language, main academic language of the Roman Empire. So we've got Greek words in drama, and of course in medicine, thanks to Hippocrates and the Hippocratic Oath, etc. And also in philosophy. We've got Latin words because for some reason, even though Greek was the language of the intelligentsia, Latin became popular. I don't know, I didn't track the history of that. Anyway, we've got huge vocabulary. So one word can have 16 different cognates. So you can, the way you can do this is you can use affixes to change words. You can use a thesaurus. Now, when you use a thesaurus, do this when you're writing your essays, but extensive, don't say extensive, don't say extensive more than once. Use extensive and then use substantial, considerable, immense, broad, expansive. Use words like this. Don't say big, say grand, huge, vast, monumental, immense. Don't say small, say minuscule, minute, mini, paltry, puny. Don't say green, say verdant, say poison green if it's a bad thing. Say olive green if it's a good thing or a peaceful thing. So use words sensibly. Don't say ambitious, say progressive, enthusiastic, go ahead, purposeful, striving. So you need extensive and ambitious language. Okay, now here's a quick warning before we go any further. Please be aware that it hasn't come through very well. Having a great vocabulary didn't save the noble thesaurus from extinction or eradication or that was a really good graphic. I'm sorry it didn't come through. Okay, on to spelling. Spelling. No, not like Harry Potter, different sort of spelling. Sorry about that. Spelling, you'll need to be able to spell things correctly. Stop me if I'm getting too technical here. You need to spell things, including ambitious vocabulary. So words that, common words, you should be able to spell. And if you can't, then you need to learn them. And there's no shortcut around that. I apologize if you're dyslexic. That's a problem. But there are ways around that problem, finding ways to learn it. I'm afraid it means you're going to have to work a little bit harder, but you will be better at the end of it, I assure you. Dyslexia is actually a gift to make you work harder. Anyway, this from the non-dyslexic who's never actually gone through that hardship. Yeah, you can ignore me on that point. Other things where problems come up are things like homophones, which we'll talk about in a moment. And of course there are common mistakes which come up. Things like there. What? Let's talk a bit more about that with our look at homophones. Homophones are nothing like headphones. They're also nothing like microphones or even mobile phones. Now that we've got that complete irrelevancy out of the way, let's look at some common homophones and why they're difficult. Notice why they're difficult. There. The first there has here in it. It's about a place. Over there. If it belongs to them, they are the heir of it. H-E-I-R. They inherit it. Like that is there. The second there. And the third there, though it is pronounced there, and you're bored of me saying the word there, it is they are, and it's spelt they apostrophe re. Make sure you've got the right there, because there's nothing more annoying for an examiner than to see something like that. You're using the wrong there when you're obviously doing good work otherwise. Similarly, there's here and here. The first here is also in there. So, but that's neither here nor there. See what I did there? And right now you are hearing this with your ear. Notice E-A-R, here is at the end. You see there are ways to remember these spellings. That's what I'm getting at. Bye. I've used the wrong bye. Silly Timmy. I meant to write B-Y-E at the end. So yes, buy with a U. You buy something. You buy something when you give money and get something in return. It is sold by the vendor. BY, which is a preposition. BYE is short for goodbye, which is a corruption of the original God be with you. You was spelled ye, as in God rest ye merry gentlemen, let nothing ye dismay. It's that same thing. Ye, be with you, B-Y-E. Bored. You are probably bored, that's the second bored, of me saying the word bored. That's possibly the first bored. Water everywhere, and all the boards did shrink. Water everywhere, nor any drop to drink. And points if you can name the poem. And and the bird that's associated with it. Board with an A is like tabletop or a board game or a board. Whereas bored, when you bore someone, so you've got the affix of D at the end to make it into an adjective, but the root verb is to bore, which is possibly what I'm doing now. So let's move on. Oh dear. Dear. The first deer is the plural of which is deer, like sheep is sheep and fish are fish. The first deer is an animal with antlers. Looks good in headlights. Tastes good, venison. No, sorry to all vegetarians. Deer, D-E-A-R, is how you begin a letter. And it's also another way of saying expensive. Remember, English has more words than any other language in the world. There are, of course, other common spelling mistakes. You might have noticed that all of those words in the first in the title there are misspelt, just for a bit of fun. These are the Oxford Dictionary top 10 misspelt words, and the reason I'm running through these ones is because each one is an illustration of a common area that you might need to watch out for. So, for example, accommodate is very often double letters get missed out or get put in where they shouldn't do. Accommodate is double C and double M, and that's a good example of a double letter problem. Which is another one which gets misspelt. The second H, the first H of which is often missed out. It doesn't help that it's a homophone, so you can ask which watch is which watch. So WITCH is when shall we three meet again, in thunder, lightning, or in rain? When the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won, where the place upon the heath, there to meet with Macbeth. That sort of which, WITCH. Therefore, this is a homophone, but it's also a silent letter, that second H. Things to be aware of. I apologise for my impromptu Shakespeareification. Receive's a pain. You see, you all know that I comes before E, don't you? Of course you do. You were taught that at primary school. And you think, oh, I know that I comes before E. Well, the rule is not I before E. The rule is I before E except after C, which is why we have receive and receipt being spelled EI. But that's not even the end of the rule. It's actually I before E except after C, but only when the sound is E. Sorry. So if it's a different spelling, then yeah, I know it's weird. Weird also has the wrong way around and doesn't obey the rules. Let's move on. Until, this is a problem for the exact opposite reason that accommodate is a problem. So accommodate has two sets of double letters. Until has no double letters. But we often think of till, T-I-L-L, like the place where you pay for goods when you've been to the shop, or possibly for you farmers, what you do to the soil, you till the soil. Actually, another word for ploughing. Did I mention that English has more words than any other language in the world? So we forget that until actually only one L. Occurred, same thing, same issue with accommodate, double letters, double C and double R. Separate. People often just spell this phonetically. It's not wrong to spell things phonetically, except when it is. So separate or separate, both spelt the same way, meaning two different things, pronounced two different ways. These are called homographs. You don't need to know that. I thought I'd tell you for fun. Separate, sometimes people spell it with an E, and that's wrong. It's not separate, it's separate. The way to remember that is when you've identified a word that you don't know, or you constantly and consistently get wrong. Try and say it phonetically. Separate, separate. Government, another one of these silent letters. You don't often think of you say government, government, government. You don't usually put in that N sound. It's because the N sound isn't there. It's not government. However, if you think about where the word comes from, meant is an affix, it's a suffix to be precise, which is a bit chucked onto the end of a word. So to govern is the root verb. Meant is the suffix which turns govern verb into government noun. Remembering things like that is how you can remember that government is spelled with an N. Definitely, definitely, definitely. You often find it definitely. It's not as definitely, because and that becomes clear when you break it down. So you've got finite, definite, because you define it. Definitely. So you've got the ly at the end. That's the suffix, making it into an adverb. Ly makes it into an adverb. And you've got a prefix as well, de. The root word is finite. Sorry. But that's why that one gets misspelled. You've got phonetic stuff and affixes stuff going on. Yeah, inverted letters. Letters, Pharaoh. I don't know why this is a common spelling mistake. I don't know why the Oxford Dictionary wanted to put this in the list, but they did, and you know, I trust them. So Pharaoh is spelled with an AH at the end. Now, I always find this difficult with Hebrew names like Michael, and I always Michael or Daniel, and because we say Michael, Daniel, and we've got that sound instead of saying it Michael, which is how they say it in other parts of the world, by the way, Michael. We forget that the EL at the end is actually denoting God. So they all have meanings like servant of God or honouring God or whatever. But the EL is the part that means God, as against something like Elijah, where the Yah at the end denotes Yahweh as the specific iteration of God, not just El, which means like generic God. You don't need to know that. You didn't come here for a theology lesson. So let's move on. So yes, Pharaoh, OAH at the end. And publicly, once again, it's an affix issue. The LY, the root word is public. Not pub, that's shortened form of public house, for those of you who are desperate to go out and get a beer. Publicly, the ly makes it into an adverb. But what people often do with publicly is they put ALLY at the end. See, the AL in the word will make it into is a suffix which will make it into an adjective, and then you can transform that by putting an ly to make it into an adjective. But you're moving from the adjective to the adverb. I think I might have said some wrong words there. You're moving from the adjective to the adverb, and that's why some have ALLY. Publicly is not one of them, because public is the adjective, like public house. Getting thirsty now. Having dealt with spelling, I suspect you are all desperate to move on to punctuation. What is expected of you here? A wide range of punctuation is used with a high level of accuracy. I wondered about what this would mean, so we're going to talk about apostrophes, because they often get wrong, and also capital letters, which often not technically punctuation, but we're going to talk about it here as well, and also end sentence, and we're putting that in this section because we can. And I would like to just draw your attention to this little chart here, which I blatantly and shamelessly ripped from a website called EnglishGrammarHere.com, which tells you more or less what you need to know. So you've got a full stop, which we'll talk about in a little while. We've got a comma, which separates items in a series. You've got a colon, which introduces a list. It's a useful one to have. A semicolon joins independent clauses. We'll talk a little bit about that in the grammar section. Question mark, exclamation mark, again, we'll talk about that later with end sentence punctuation. A slash to separate numbers, letters and numbers, particularly if it's or, meaning or. You wouldn't use that very much in prose, but it is a valid piece of thingy. What's it? An apostrophe, which we'll talk about in more detail in a moment. The @ sign, you need that for email addresses. The ellipsis mark, that's the 3 dots. That's actually a really useful one, and it is advanced grammar, advanced punctuation. So make use of that. It means that one or more words have been intentionally left out. If you're going to leave things out, which you're perfectly entitled to do, just be careful about what you're leaving out. Don't leave anything vital that changes the meaning out. Okay. Round brackets, they add extra information to a sentence. There's a nice way of making an aside. I use these a lot in my writing. Not to be confused with square brackets, which have a different meaning. So if you would use square brackets in a quotation in order to to increase clarity. So he, in brackets, Winston Churchill, said, "We will fight them on the beaches," for example. And of course, quotation marks or inverted commas, those speech marks, they are very, very useful. And of course, remember, if you're breaking up speech, as soon as someone else is speaking, you use a different paragraph. Okay? Should we talk a bit more about apostrophes? Of course we should. Apostrophes are very important. There are 2 main uses of apostrophes: possessive and omissive. So possessive is where you're showing that someone owns something else. So if I'm talking about Worcester Cathedral, the cathedral in Worcester, I might say Worcester's Cathedral, the cathedral that belongs to the city of Worcester. If I wanted to talk about a particularly pretty girl, I might say, yeah, she's Jenny's daughter. Jenny, apostrophe S, daughter. Notice Jenny ends with a Y. You do not change that to IES when you've used an apostrophe, because it's not plural. Jenny hasn't suddenly become many Jennies. She's still one lady who has an attractive daughter. Now, the reason I put Jesus' disciples here is not because I'm a religious nutter, although I am. It's because Jesus ends with an S. When the word ends with an S, you can just shove an apostrophe on the outside of it, and then you've got that becomes Jesus's disciples, or the disciples of Jesus. Jesus' disciples. You can follow that with another S if you want to. You don't have to. If you're writing about the Chronicles of Narnia, C.S. Lewis apostrophe Chronicles of Narnia. You've just made it possessive on C.S. Lewis. That's really useful with names and words that end in S. It's absolutely essential when you've got plurals ending in S. Okay. So that's the possessive use of the apostrophe. The omissive use of the apostrophe, that's where you're missing out a letter, like and we do this all the time. Don't is actually do not. Can't is actually cannot. Till is actually until. Notice that one L. You see how it all fits together, guys. So you can miss out multiple letters with the apostrophe, so long as they're not letters that carry meaning, or it is not not understandable when you put in the apostrophe. Don't use an omissive apostrophe in unless it is a well recognized thing, would be my advice. Capital letters. I've put a picture of London because that is England's capital. I have not. I shouldn't really be saluting unless it was Buckingham Palace, but it's not. It's Elizabeth Tower, containing the bell called Big Ben. Okay, when do you use capital letters? Let me hear you shout. Oh no, it's a video. So capital letters are used to begin a sentence. So you've, after a full stop or an exclamation mark or question mark, you begin a new sentence with a capital letter every time. I, when it means I, as in first person singular subject pronoun, I like to read well punctuated sentences. I is always capitalized, not occasionally, not sometimes, not once in a while. I is always capitalized. Okay. Proper nouns, that's names of people. Mike, John, Paul, Ringo. Is names of places, is names of institutions like the University of Birmingham. U-O-B, the University of Birmingham. University of Oxford. Other universities are available. It's not called the University of Oxford, it's just called Oxford University. For religions, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Sikhism, Baha'i, whatever religion you want to be writing about, start it with a capital letter. Days and months, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but also January, February, March, but also celebrations like Christmas Day, capital C, Easter Day, capital E, Eid al-Fitr, capital E, capital F. So capitals are for days, months, including celebrations. Titles, of course. Mr., Mrs., Miss, Ms, Mux. I'm not sure how you pronounce the MX. I don't think that's been formalised yet, and we shall see whether it stands the test of time. But also things like doctor, reverend, professor. So the titles all begin with capital letters. Let's talk briefly about end sentence punctuation. There are three ways to end a sentence. The full stop is the most common one. It's where you stop a sentence. It is also a useful technique if you're engaged in counselling someone who has severe anxiety and thoughts keep going round and round and round their head. You can say full stop and they stop thinking about it. Get them to say it to themselves. It's a really useful technique. That's irrelevant. That's how you stop a sentence. Stop a sentence after 2 or 3 clauses, please. I'll talk about clauses in a moment. If you're saying something that you would normally shout, stop in the name of love before you break my heart, you end it with an exclamation mark. I hope I'm not going to get I know that sounded an awful lot like the original. I hope I won't get a copyright strike for that. The exclamation mark comes at the end of an exclamation. There is one town in the UK that ends with an exclamation mark. It's Westward Ho, because people used to set out from there, sail west across the Atlantic. If there's anyone watching from Westward Ho or know anyone from Westward Ho, hi! But yeah, the exclamation mark is a really useful one, but it's rare. Don't overuse it. And the third one, of course, is a question mark. Stop me if I get too technical again, but a question mark is used to denote a question. I don't think I need to go into that in any more detail. A question mark is used to denote a question. So that's what you do with that. So in the grammar, 3 things were mentioned. One, sentence demarcation, which is where you use those 3 end sentences. Sentence forms and grammatical structures. So I'm going to talk about each one of those. Sentence demarcation is where you show that you have split up thoughts into sentences. A sentence should be something with a subject, a verb, and a complete thought. That is the definition, the dictionary definition of a sentence. That is, of course, a simple sentence. But there are other sorts of sentences. There's also compound sentences and complex sentences. Would you like to talk about the simple sentences? I'm so glad. Let's do it. A simple sentence is it's very simple. It contains one subject, one finite verb, that is a verb in a tense. That's a finite verb, and it must make sense. Those are the 3 criteria. Now, it must begin with a capital letter and end with a full stop, but that's not what makes it a sentence. That's not what makes it a sentence. What makes it a sentence is the subject, a verb, and it makes sense. The rest is just good punctuation, which you should have now after watching this video. Jesus wept is the shortest verse in the Bible. It's the Gospel according to John, chapter 11 and verse 35, and none of you care a jot about that. Because what you want to know is, why is that a sentence? It's 2 words. It is only 2 words. Well, this shortest verse in the Bible is 2 words. You have one subject, in this case, Jesus Christ, whoever you think that might be, Jesus. You've also got a finite verb, that is a verb, in this case, the past tense. Jesus wept. Jesus wept. And therefore, it's a full verb. It makes sense. He wept because of Lazarus. I'll let you read the story. It's quite cool. It gets better from that point on. Now, the compound sentence, so a simple sentence is one defining clause. A defining clause. A compound is 2 clauses joined by and or but. In fact, by fanboys. I'll talk about fanboys in a second. So you've got Jesus wept and raised Lazarus. Oh, here we go. Jesus wept, but he still prayed. Jesus wept, but he still prayed. He still prayed is a complete sentence. Jesus wept is a complete sentence. You join them together with but for contradicting ideas and for similar ideas. So what's fanboys? You can join 2 simple sentences with for, and, nor, but, or, yet, or so. Fan, for and, nor, boys, be, or, yet, so. Now, that's 2 subordinate, so 2 defining clauses or definite clauses. Clauses, by the way, are not a family of people who give presents. That's not what clauses are. Clauses are also not what bears have. See what I did there? Bears is clause. Clauses are parts of a sentence, a group of words. So simple and compound, But what you really want to know is, what's a complex sentence? Well, since you ask, a complex sentence is a simple sentence plus a dependent clause. So an independent clause, Jesus wept, an independent clause is one that doesn't, plus a dependent clause. The dependent clause doesn't work as a sentence without being attached to an independent clause. Yeah, does that make sense? Let's try it out. Jesus wept. That's an independent clause. Because Lazarus had died. Because Lazarus had died is a dependent clause. It does not make sense on its own. Jesus wept because Lazarus had died. And whether that's accurate, I leave you to discuss with the theologian. Now, you can, I'm sorry about this, you can remember what conjunctions join complex sentences with the very standard and useful acronym ISAWABUB. 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 So we've got, let's get my laser pointer, if, since, as, when, although, while, after, before, until, because. Of those, because is the most useful. Okay, because is the most useful. So if you're concerned about whether you've got a complex sentence in your writing, check out that you've got a because in there somewhere, and then you're guaranteed that you have got. Your writing should include simple, compound, and complex sentences, and they should change the way that text feels to the reader. So if you want something to go really fast, then you want lots of short, simple sentences. Boom, 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 boom. It was a hot day. Full stop. The sun was beating on the fields. Full stop. This isn't helpful, is it? This isn't particularly dramatic. He hit him. Full stop. Blood spurted from his head. Full stop. This is getting dark. The murderer laughed. Full stop. It's happening really quickly, and each one has impact. In fact, the murderer laughed. Exclamation mark. Why not? Sorry, that took a very dark turn. When you're building drama, lots of short sentences. When you're drawing a picture, creating a landscape, particularly at the beginning of a story, when you're doing the build-up, use some complex sentences to describe what's going on, or describe the background of against which you are writing. And these are sentence forms. You will be expected to use, although not necessarily understand, tenses. If you want to become an English teacher later on, you need to know this. If you don't, you can skip over this part of the video. However, this will really help you to put a framework around the tenses that you already use. Here's how it works. There are three main areas of tenses: past, present, and future. That's not complicated. There are four basic modes: simple, continuous, perfect simple, and perfect continuous. So let's put some examples in place here. So the past simple is used to talk about something that happened one time in the past. I passed my exam. When? Last week. Aha, okay, done. I passed my exam. The present simple is something that is true all the time. I pass exams. That's my thing. That's my hobby. My hobby is passing exams. I pass exams, don't you know? Something that happens all the time. Future is... Stop me if I'm getting too complicated here. It's something that will happen in the future. So the future simple would be something like, I will pass my exam. I'm making a prediction. I will pass my exam. Continuous is about something that is ongoing. So the past continuous gives background. So I was passing my exam. I was passing my exam is past continuous. Think of songs. You were working as a waitress in a cocktail bar when I met you. Human League. There she was, just a walking down the street, singing do-a-diddy-diddy-dum-diddy-do. Both of these are using past continuous to tell a story, or to tell the background of a story. They are also being intersected with past simple, giving a definite finished action. The present continuous is used for talking about what's going on right now. What's going on? 25 years and my life is still trying to get up that great big hill. Shut up, Tim. Okay, so I am passing my exams right now. What are you doing right now? I am passing my exam. Don't actually say that to any invigilator, and invigilators shouldn't be asking you, what are you doing right now when you're in the exam? Unless you've got all the answers written along your arm. I am passing my exam. But it's something, we use it for talking about what's happening right now, although it's also useful for talking about the future, 'cause I'm leaving on a jet plane. What, right now? No, you're not. You're singing this song. Oh yeah, I'm singing this song, but I've got it planned for the future. So you can use present continuous for future meaning. The future continuous would be, I will be passing my exam. Hey, what are you doing this time next week? Oh, I will be passing my exam. Okay, now we're talking about the perfect. Some of you will know this from studying things like French or German or Latin or Greek or Azerbaijani. I don't know. It's possible. The perfect tense is one we don't really talk about very much, but we use an awful lot. It's stuff with the auxiliary verb have. So let's have a look. Have a look. That's not perfect. So the past perfect simple, I had passed my exams. Once again, you're giving background information, usually. I had passed my exam. Why did you work in that place? Well, I had passed my exam. Why were you able to get this job? Because I had passed my exam. So it's all about telling a story from a different vantage point. So in the past perfect, you're talking about telling a story from the perspective of the past. From the present perfect, you're telling the story from the perspective of the present. I have passed my exam, therefore I can apply for this job. I have passed my exam, which is why I'm qualified to be on this course. Yeah. So that's why you were telling the story from the perspective of the present, about something that's in the past. The future is similar. I will have passed my exam. Next week, when I apply for the job, I will have passed my exam. Similarly, the past perfect continuous, same idea, background information and an ongoing series of events, like I had been passing my exam. Present perfect continuous, I have been passing my exam. Hey, what have you been doing today? I've been passing my exam, don't you know? Last one is covered over by my beautiful face. I have been passing my exam. I will have been passing my exam. So what will you have been I'm not even going to go there. Too many auxiliaries. I will have been passing my exam. Whew. These are the main tenses that you're going to use in the English language. 12. Now you could mix stuff up and what have you, but yeah, that's the main stuff. And you need to know that because there are other grammatical structures to talk about. There are conditionals. There is the passive voice, passive and active voice. And there are relative clauses. I want to spend a bit of time on conditionals if that's okay. Conditionals are sentences where you start with if and continue with then, or so. So how about this? There are four main conditionals: 0, first, second, third. 0, first, second, third conditionals. There are also mixed conditionals. I'm not going to worry about those. We'll mention it at the end. They always start with two clauses. Once again, clauses, not thing that bearses have. You have the if clause and the then clause. And of course, the if clause can start with when or unless, which means if not, or of course if. The further back in a tense the if clause goes, the less likely it is to happen. Similarly, the further forward the then clause is, the more likely it is to happen. Watch this. The 0 conditional are for rules. If you heat, present simple, water to 100 degrees C, it boils. Also present simple. We use the 0 conditional for rules that are always true. It is always true that if you heat water to 100 degrees, it boils, unless you're down by the Dead Sea or up at the top of Mount Everest. If you are watching this down by the Dead Sea or at the top of Mount Everest, give me a comment. Why not? But ask your science teacher about that. But yes, if you've got present simple and present simple, it's always going to happen. First conditional is for quite likely situations. If I study hard, present simple, I will pass. Future simple, it's very likely. It's very likely that you'll study hard or you wouldn't be watching this video. It's very likely, therefore, that you will pass. It's not certain. Anything could happen. But that's why you're studying hard, isn't it? Then you've got the second conditional. The second conditional is for an unlikely situation. So, if I won £1 million, I would buy my own turnip. I'm going baldrick on you there. If I won is past simple. I won. If I won £1 million. It's unlikely, largely because I don't play the lottery, but partially because even if I did play the lottery, it would be extraordinarily unlikely. And then it's followed by would. You'll enjoy this. Would is the past tense of will, which is the future auxiliary. It's the past of the future. It's as conditional as you can get. So if I won £1 million, I would buy my own turnip in the country. And then there's the third conditional. Third conditional is for something impossible. And the reason it's impossible is because it's in the past. It's about dead time. We can't change the past. You can never change the past. You can only change the future. So, which is why you're watching this exam, trying to change your future. So, if I had studied harder, if I had studied past perfect harder, I would have passed my exam. I would have passed my exam. And notice you've got present perfect, would and present perfect for your second clause there. I would have passed my exam. If I had studied harder, I would have passed my exam. Now you can put the if clause at the beginning and separate it with a comma, or you can put your if clause at the end and probably not separate it with a comma. It doesn't matter. You can mix it all around. Mixed conditionals also happen. I shall leave you to think about what that might look like, or Google it if you're particularly interested. Let's talk about passive. So there's two voices. There's more than two voices. The two main voices are the passive and the active. the passive and the active. So the active is the normal one. That's where you say something like, Charles Dickens wrote the book Oliver Twist. Charles Dickens is your subject, wrote is your verb, the book is the object, Oliver Twist. That is an active sentence where the subject does the action. However, if you would like the action to be done to the subject, then you change it to passive. The book Oliver Twist was written by Charles Darwin. Forget about by Charles Darwin, it doesn't matter. The book was written. The book was written is the passive voice. And it doesn't matter who wrote it, Charles Dickens, not important. The important thing here is the book, Oliver Twist. The book was written. And so what you've done is you've changed the focus of that. And the third thing I would like to talk to you about for grammatical structures that you need to be shoving in there, one of which is covered over by, once again, my beautiful face. Feel free to comment in the comment section about how much you agree with that statement. The teacher who inspired me. Relative clauses. The two types of relative clauses, there are defining and non-defining relative clauses. So a defining one, the teacher who inspired me was very funny. The teacher who inspired me was very funny. So the teacher was very funny. Which teacher? The teacher who inspired me. That's a defining relative clause. It is not separated by commas. It's just run straight through. The teacher who inspired me was very funny, because you had many teachers and not all of them were funny. It includes essential information, and also not all of them inspired you. I apologize for the teaching profession. So what about non-defining? A non-defining relative clause, since you ask, my teacher, comma, who inspired me, comma, was very funny and attractive. Thank you very much for saying so. Leave comments to agree in detail about that. My teacher was very funny and attractive. My teacher, comma, who inspired me, comma, was very funny and attractive. It's non-defining. You can leave it out and it won't matter. But you're talking about a specific teacher. No, hang on, it's non-defining. You're giving additional information about that teacher. So you're talking about English teachers in general, and you're comparing notes with someone about how good your English teacher was, and you're saying, my teacher was very funny and attractive. But if you want to add some more information, my teacher, who inspired me, was very funny and attractive. Try and shove some of these advanced grammatical structures into your exam writing. And if you can do that, you will then be ready for the adventures of SPaG. And yes, you can climb Everest with my old friend SPaG. Okay, I'm just being silly now. I hope you've enjoyed this Oak Tree English video. I hope you have learned a lot about vocabulary, spelling, punctuation and grammar. If not, don't tell anyone. If you have, please remember to share, like and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you all again soon, after you've passed your exam.